like from Wonder Woman into you hosting Weave.
Weave Woman. Wonder Weave.
Welcome to Wednesday Club. We three are assembled again.
Hi.
We are the trio.
I'm so jet lagged.
Still,
How's it going?
I can't feel anything anymore.
What continent are you in at the moment?
Incontinentia.
You're somewhere over Nova Scotia, I believe.
Oh my God, Mid-Atlantic at the very least. It was quite a time in London. And while I was not physically present for it, mere feet. It was London. Mere meters away from me was DaisyCon.
By the way, I did not attend DaisyCon. I would have were I there, and maybe next year we'll figure that out. But
there were many pleas. I will not say there was like one plea or even 5 or even 10, but there were many, well into double digits, to have both of you attend this convention.
Well, and you may not know that they were meanwhile working on us to agree to let them keep Britney. Which
they wanted to keep
did
Britney.
not go over.
I told them no.
Stopped at the border, but
as I told them, I put a ring on her, which means I own her, and she.
Well, what a good segue into Wonder Woman.
I was not saying there's the text of her moving over at great speed.
Wow, free Britney hashtag.
I can say that because everyone knows I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right? She's on her way.
And that you would be useless without her, and it works out great.
Chief, you don't have to tell her. She's watching.
There's some wonderful T-shirts that I'm to give to you as soon as they went
also,
to the office though, so I don't have them yet.
Amy, I'm so sorry. I have one for you that Brittany brought from London to give to you, and I forgot. It's on my countertop at home, right by my back door. But if you want to look at,
thank you, London daisies. It's beautiful.
You Euro daisies are wonderful.
It was quite a spectacular.
Who did the colors on this? It's so good.
I also have a few. I have a few things. We don't have a Daily Wednesday this week, but I do have a few things I want to show off. This is nowhere near the amount of like cool stuff that happened in London, other than seeing some really good theater and hearing some good music. I saw some really good theater.
Oh, but you can't say what you saw because because we're on stage. And it's bad luck to say what you saw.
Is this technically a stage? I mean, this is the internet.
It's a stage. We're on a stage, on a set.
I saw the Scottish play.
What's the worst that
the
can
Scottish
happen?
play. I don't want to test it.
I saw the 11th Doctor in the Scottish play. I can't say his name. I can't say the name of the play.
Wow.
The 11th?
Chief, come
God
on!
damn it, Chief.
Wait, you saw the 11th?
Eccleston.
Ninth.
No, so yeah, ninth.
Okay.
Ninth.
Ninth-ish, depending if you count the War Doctor. It's not important.
It's the War Doctor. So many feelings. It was amazing.
I'm so confused right now. The what?
Yeah, it was an amazing show. I also have Kit's new comic, but I didn't. It's still with the other pile of stuff, and I only have one pile of stuff so far. And like we were given a bunch of comic books by Wednesdays. This was actually from an Irish Wednesday whose name I cannot say, I believe, because I don't have permission. But and then I got these wonderful, just because this amuses me, these really old
vintage manga magazines.
Vintage British manga magazines, including like wonderful.
You can win an Akira double pack video.
May I open this?
Yes. These are to be opened. I know these are really exciting. They've got translated manga, including translated Akira. A story about, oh God, what is this? Gunhead, Xenon, and Dominion Tank Police. I know it comes with 3 cards.
With cards. Steal my beating heart.
Yes. This is 1993, and the cover is Godzilla by Art Adams. Holy cow.
Yeah, and lensing in on the Lensman, which is quite exciting, which was the big deal in theaters when I was young. Everyone was excited about Lensman.
What? I only know if that is like the proto Green Lantern thing.
It kind of had a bit of a Green Lantern vibe. That's fair. Oh man, this is so. Yeah, these are ridiculous.
I love that you can like Ramita is so like you so immediately know Ramita.
Yep. It's got to look.
Yeah. He's just.
Sorry. I also have this wonderful. I was given this wonderful fanzine. I was given a fanzine, a Molly Mock fanzine, which is kind of spectacular.
What?
So I just had to show off.
Wait, what?
This is a Molly Mock fanzine. They made a fanzine.
Read this convention roundup and tell me if you went to any of them.
Oh wow. Okay.
Left page.
Now, do it now.
Convention round. Where is that convention roundup? Oh. The American Anime Convention, Anime Expo 93. Yes, I was definitely at Anime Expo 93. Anime America 93, I was not at. Conti Animated? No, definitely not. iDRAC? Definitely not. But I was at the Anime Expo in Oakland, California.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, but Anime America back then was part of Worldcon, the 1993 staff of Worldcon, with special guests, Kenichi from Bubblegum Crisis, the Outlanders animated. Oh my God, this is so deep. Yeah, a lot of insane deep stuff. These are wonderful. And then I know, isn't that beautiful? Yeah, it's a deep run.
Wow.
Also, I went books shopping because
Have you looked at
apparently.
this?
Oh yeah.
What's that?
Have you looked at this map?
I didn't even know it existed until now.
I know. I saved all this as a surprise. I thought I would I was attempting to blow their minds with a bunch of weird stuff.
This is like the era where I first started collecting X-Men.
Yeah,
this is like
that's about my era as well.
like this is the Cable that I remember from the first comic my dad ever
the
bought.
Cable who was afraid of drowning.
Dad, look, it's the Cable that you bought me. Almost.
He's
kind
so
of.
afraid of drowning. He wears a life preserver everywhere he goes. I also discovered that all of the rare books that I own came from somewhere, and that place was Europe. So I apparently whereas my favorite bookstores in Los Angeles are like their 3 shelves of cool shit is in fact just 3 shelves of what is basically called a bookstore when I go to London, where the entire bookstore is made of stuff that is just beautiful and old. One of the things I found was this volume 1 and 2 of the children's singing games of 1894.
Oh dear God!
Because
Is this
fuck
from
life.
actual 1894?
This is not, but I believe that this is a reprint from the early 1920s or 1910s.
Look
it's
at this
just, they literally
art on
just,
the cover.
It's literally straight presses. I can kind of show this off. It's straight presses of the music and themes of classic children's rhymes, and then descriptions from 1894 of how the dances, the weird clapping and walking dances, would go along with these, and then some history as to where they think that these songs came from. When I Was a Young Girl is the first one in this volume, which has actually been covered by Rasputina. It's quite a good children's rhyme. These are the things you know, apparently.
David Nutt in the Strand.
I know, Mr. Nut in the Strand.
To the children of our villages and towns who have preserved these games, I dedicate this little book.
Yeah.
Collected and edited by Alice B. Gaume, pictured in black and white by Winifred Smith, 2nd series.
Yes.
My goodness.
David Nutt in the Strand is the most British sounding.
David Nut in the Strand. Nut in the Strand. Yeah, I know. It's quite nice, isn't it?
Oh my God! I
It's
didn't know that they
beautiful.
had chips back in the 20s.
Well, no, I mean, this was a library.
recent?
It was a library resale because they got rid of it out of the system. That was back when it was. You can tell it's been in the system for quite a while. While I was also in one of these amazing bookstores that I was dragging poor Matt and Marisha to unendingly. No, I say dragging. They were having just as much fun and bought stuff too, but including your lovely wife.
I know. I saw some of the books she bought.
I did find these. I was very fortunate to find that someone had just dropped in this amazing collection of books that there was just a pile of them, and I tried to select 3 that I thought the group would find interesting, and I'm excited with the notion of either of you want one of these. I'm quite pleased to say this actually shouldn't be the first one. We'll start here.
But I've seen it.
Can I
Here.
show off a random picture from this book?
Oh
by the
yes,
way?
please.
London Bridge is broken down
The original, yeah.
with this beautiful picture of people getting arrested.
Yeah, those are German Launch Connect soldiers too, I believe. Yeah, so those would have been. Oh, you put it on the table. There we are. Yep. This book is absolutely stunning, though, isn't it?
Wow. Yeah.
Just unbelievable.
And then the description of the. I'm very excited for this. Hold on. Here's a copy of Amazing Stories.
Oh wow.
This is an original Amazing Stories. This is the story of The Green Man by Harold Sherman. 1946, October of 1946. It smells delightful.
That's
Hello,
what
Dr. Doom.
Yeah. Brittany brought home, I think, a weird tale.
I helped her select
Yeah.
something really.
And that's one of the very first things that I did.
Hey! First ad,
Oh-ho.
page 3. Free. Dames are dangerous. What every man should really know.
Oh, well, I
about
mean,
women.
like, if this cover of Fantastic Adventures doesn't tell you the dames are dangerous, I don't know what does.
What?
Here's
Oh, very
There's a very dangerous
Communing with
name,
the devil.
Communing with the
Dames.
Devil.
You know those dames and their devil communing.
This is also, you can immediately develop self-confidence by mastering jiu-jitsu on page 1. And
Oh, yeah.
collar.
I'm proof of that.
And a Charles Atlas ad, because everything needs
Well,
Charles
yeah,
Atlas
everything
ad.
has to have Atlas.
I thought you would also appreciate that these, in fact, have letter columns.
Oh, my God.
which is-
Of course.
Sci-fi letter hacks.
Oh,
the
man.
original fandom.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. Oh.
So
Oh, it
it's
smells
it's
so-
quite a beautiful smell.
Now, you're a fragrance person. Do you
I
know
am.
if they make an old book fragrance?
They do. I actually own one.
No, I'm asking because I assumed that was the case.
Yeah, I know. I have it. There's
Can I have it? Will you bring it to me for me to keep and have forever?
I will. I'll
Thank you.
bring a little sample of it and see what you think.
No, just bring the whole bottle. I don't want a sample. I just want the whole bottle.
It isn't
Can you
this
bring me the whole
particular. This
bottle?
is particular cheap acid print that has a very unique smell. But with like
Yeah, well, I want this.
this, I don't know if anyone does like this acid print as a smell.
If anyone knows if they do like a cheap acid print smell, oh yeah. Our stage manager is telling me to just rub it.
Just
Joey.
rub the book on the. It is
But
beautiful.
we have a new one, Joey. Congratulations.
But yeah, these are brilliant, beautiful collections
man.
of science fiction literature.
They're celebrating the 25th anniversary of Amazing Stories in this one.
Volume 20, 1946, over here.
Let's see. This
That's
one
fantastic.
And this,
Adventures.
look,
But it's the
this
British
is-
edition of Amazing Stories.
Yes.
And where's the date on this thing? Copyright 1950.
there you go.
Ziff Davis. It's the 25th anniversary. I love this because next year marks the silver anniversary of the aristocrat of science fiction. For 25 years, Amazing Stories has been the leader in its field. During that time, the magazine has undergone relatively few important changes in format, this being especially true during the last decade. We've won countless thousands of new and enthusiastic readers, and the popularity of Amazing continues to grow. And then there, oh my gosh. This is.
I thought you would get a kick out of this, and of course, if you want to keep one of these as your own, feel free. So.
They've just scheduled L. Ron Hubbard's great new novel, The Masters of Sleep.
Oh my God.
Yes, this is me bringing ridiculous stuff home. I did
My
get The Green Man and The Green Man Returns,
Goodness.
and then The Devil with You, which I'm really excited to take a look at some point.
Yeah, I haven't read Robert Bloch.
Yeah, no, I picked that one up on the cover alone because it was so lascivious. I didn't know how not to.
Yeah.
Not to
well, Taliesin
enjoy.
doesn't know how to say no to lascivious.
It's true. It's practically my middle name.
Okay, the first letter in the reader's column here
Yes,
is
I'm
about
so excited.
somebody getting the science wrong in one of their stories.
I'm
With
so
detailed
pleased.
equations from the letter writer being like, there's a technical discrepancy in your article.
It's good to see that even back then.
Yep.
Actually,
Thank you, Robert Poorman of Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
actually.
Probably in your 80s or 90s by now, I imagine. Oh dear.
Oh my goodness.
If alive at all. Yeah, it is a deep pull.
Wow.
If you see anything else you want to read out of the text there, feel free. I know it's a lot.
Wow.
But yeah, so I found a giant pile of these and picked 3 of the most interesting looking ones to bring home. They had a giant pile,
This is
so
amazing.
this was quite pleasing. Fantastic Adventures and 2 copies of Amazing Stories from the 1940s. I mean, I'd say it was the most interesting thing to come out of the 1940s, except, of course, by means of segue. There are other things that we're going to be talking about from the 1940s.
That's right. We have a show. We're on air right now, aren't we?
Yeah, a little.
Dude, these are amazing. Good finds.
Thank you. I'm very
finds.
excited.
So our actual topic today, I'm very excited to get y'all's thoughts on because this is the long-awaited by us 3rd part of the tradition Matt started of doing our own non-canonical version of what year 1 means, which is to literally just read the first year's worth of comics published about a certain character.
This is DC's Trinity.
Yeah.
This is
We finished the Trinity.
we've
We'll
finished
have-
the holy Trinity of DC Comics.
Yep, we've read the only important things about Batman and Superman, which were those published before the year 1940, and now basically the end of 1941 and most of 1942 for Wonder Woman. So I've read this material before. I got about halfway through my reread, so you'll have to refresh my memory on a couple of the things. But had you both read all of this before, or were there fresh impressions?
Fresh impression.
What did you think?
I had read it before, but it had been a while.
I had read like 1 or 2, but never like beginning to end, like the whole year. You want to know my honest to God first impression?
Yes.
Poor Etta Candy.
Etta Candy.
like very legitimately. So Etta Candy.
Oh, boy.
Like I'm sure you saw the movie, and the movie did her way more justice than the comics did.
Oh man, ain't that true?
Lucy Davis plays her beautifully.
Etta Candy is, I think they use the word plump a lot.
She is the misbegotten side. She is the Jimmy Olsen to Wonder Woman.
And by the way, a total badass.
Saves the day repeatedly.
Like repeatedly.
Yes.
Like she is the Winter Soldier, very legitimately, to Diana's Wonder Woman. But I didn't have this thought until today when I was like finishing up my last couple reads. But I want to go and find every single panel where she appears to talk about candy.
I believe it's every time she's in the store.
Nearly every.
At
Or
least
she's eating in every
It's at
image.
least 60% of the panels that she's in, she talks about how much she loves candy and how much she needs candy. And of the remaining 30 or 40% of panels, 20% of those are, whew, I'm out of breath because I'm out of shape. Sure, I'm fat. Don't know what kind of purpose I serve to you. And it's like, dude, Moulton, like, you're trying to set like this progressive thing. You're doing like female empowerment, like the matriarchy is the way of the future. Like he was saying the future is female in the 30s. But then at the same time, he's like, look at this fatso. It's just like, oh my God.
There's literally an Amazon named Fatsis in one of the retellings.
I did take a screenshot of that. There's an Amazon named Fatsis, and her power is that she's fat and she sits on Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman kicks her off.
Yep.
She's like, take that, Fatsis.
I did in fact find, I will say, I found what I thought was the best candy witticism of the entire book. Because despite all this, I think she's given some amazing dialogue. She is legitimately saving the day, though. She's doing everything all the fucking time.
So this is my thing, is that like,
everyone treats her really shittily.
Like, the narrative's insistence on returning to what it perceives as the comedy gold of Etta Candy being big is bizarre.
Yeah.
But I love 1940s Etta Candy because she is
She gives no fucks.
unquestioned leader of the absolute force of chaos and power that is college women in this book. And
The Holiday Girls.
It's deep.
it's one of the things that I love, and this is gonna be weird, but like, so a lot of old comics don't really hold up, and there are things about these that really don't. But there are other things that I like just shock me every time I revisit this by the fact that like the second Wonder Woman gets to our world, her world is populated with interesting side characters, female villains, female rivals, and crucially, almost immediately, female backup. Like, she bonds with Etta at some point sort of instantly and has this reserve force of anarchic sorority girls ready to literally overwhelm Nazis at a moment's notice, no matter what else is going on.
Anarchic sorority girls is one of the greatest like phrases.
No, I mean, like,
you're not wrong. It's exactly what it is.
They come in like an antiquarian museum in bedknobs and broomsticks. I mean, like the music comes in and it's just, they're literally in marching uniforms making their way towards the
They
Nazi
are
soldiers.
a piranha tornado.
It's
They just
amazing.
come in, they eat everything up, and then they're out.
When you pit them against Nazis, they win 100% of the time.
They won 100% of the time when they were in a Nazi sub. Wonder Woman was like, I forgot about the sub. Mental telegraph to Etta Candy and the Holiday Girls. Oh my God, Wonder Woman's contacting me at C. We'll be right there, Wonder Woman. And they go to C and they go into a Nazi sub.
I literally have the panel right here. I've saved it.
It is the best wacky. It is the best version of wacky.
Etta Candy, get 10 girls. Meet train from Washington. This is a different one. At Baltimore Station, keep Captain Trevor on train. With him is blonde girl named Eve Brown. A spy. Capture her. Take her to your room. Hold her for me. Hurry. Important. Signing off. Wonder Woman.
Now, can you imagine Superman doing that to Jimmy Olsen, and Jimmy Olsen would be like, what? What? How am I supposed to? I've got a bow tie. What am I supposed to do with this? And
my bow tie doesn't spin.
And
I can't fly with
weird,
this.
like,
and it's just like, yeah, whatever. All right, I'm on it.
Wonder Woman takes them seriously as a force available to her. Like, weaves stories with all of the various secretaries and nurses and like people
yeah.
out there in the world. Oh, this is when they lead the protest against
yeah.
unfair milk prices.
Oh yeah. That's a whole issue.
All right, so
but yeah, you can
first-
see the
Yeah,
marching
okay,
band.
we
So let me just say, so Etta Candy
is
Wonder Woman's Jimmy Olsen. She is in a nearby college, Holiday College or
Holiday
Holiday
College,
University.
That was mine.
And Wonder Woman immediately friends her, and her first appearance, she says something to the effect of, wait, I've met you before, but you were like 40 pounds lighter. And then Etta Candy says, yeah, but then I discovered candy, and it's delicious, and I can't stop. Do you want candy? And from there on, every other panel, even when she's fighting, she's holding a box of chocolate.
When they attack the Nazi sub, she's trying to make sure her candy doesn't get wet. And then ultimately when it does, she says, now it tastes like saltwater taffy.
Whap, whap. And it's just like, oh my God, they were doing Paul Blart back in like the 40s. Like,
So
okay,
I
good
focus
to
more
see.
on the fighting Nazis and being the leader of the other girls, and less on the really offensive fat jokes.
No, and-
But they are all over it.
And I'll say, as secondary characters in these superhero books go, she comes off pretty well. I mean, of all
She does.
of all of
She
the
does.
sidekicks,
This is a great line.
this is my favorite line. Is because she has a lot of. This comes in a series of these panels where they're just trying to like. It's just Wonder Woman going like, maybe you should do something, and Etta going, no, shut up. And it's such
I don't
wonderful.
think we
wit.
got the
yeah. There we are.
close up on that one.
Yeah.
You know, Etta, you ought to cut down on the candy. It will ruin your constitution.
Nuts, dearie. My constitution has room for lots of amendments. I'm just like.
I like
such a
keeping
good-
her British.
She must be in my head. She is.
Exchange student.
I really loved her in the movie quite a bit. So
So did I. She was great.
Yeah.
Like, and a great character that I was completely unfamiliar with until
These
even the movie
days, she's
came out.
usually like a secret agent or a member of Trevor's, like one of his coworkers.
I liked her as a sorority. I think they should have just made her like not even a college, but just like someone running a college house. Like that's her job.
It's also interesting, and we'll get into this more later, but I'm fascinated by this in some senses, like the specific fact that her backup is like a sorority, which at first you think they're kind of joking about, and then they really, I guess,
Yeah.
seriously are. It is interesting for me because, like, you know, by the time I was going to college, Greek life had very different connotations for me. But I know, talking to sort of women in my family from previous generations, like back when it was much less usual for women to go to college, sororities as a source of kind of like, served a function in the community that, like, no offense to people who are in sororities now because they may still serve this function for you, but there were some things that made that, like, that I'm less weirded out by reading about Greek life for previous generations, because I kind of get more that, like, you were all super outnumbered most of the time, or you were at like women's only colleges trying to develop a collegiate culture of your own. And I tend to regard it slightly differently than I would now if it was like Wonder Woman calls a sorority for backup. It would mean something different to me because today has a very different context for Greek life. I don't know if that's just me.
My grandmother went through college. She was in part of the debutante culture and went through and she had mixed feelings about it, but definitely at the same time had lifelong relationships that came out of it. So, which I definitely know, and perceived. I know that she perceived college as a bit of a strain on one's endurance of fellow human beings.
Yeah, fair enough.
So
But it
to
is
split the leash.
interesting, like in a very early story, there's sort of a girl who's working as an office girl at the, like a delivery girl for the Office of Intelligence that Diana's working in, who kind of, you know, basically betrays her country and should probably go to jail. And Wonder Woman's like, put her in college, we'll straighten her out. And it's interesting because it's like, it's 1941.
Yeah.
It's pretty radical to be like, yes, some education will fix what is wrong with, like,
Yeah.
So we're way far
Reform.
ahead of the horse. But every time I revisit these, despite some of the horrifying elements that persist in
Time
the story,
inevitably will put into these.
I'm always sort of struck over again by how, like, legitimately progressive a lot of this stuff is.
The Dr. Marstons both, yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot of them in there, and you can also tell that they were living the college life when they were putting this together, and that was really what they knew.
So should we talk about where
Wow.
like the basics, since we jumped into the details?
Man,
Yeah,
that's true.
You said first impressions.
That is
and
definitely-
literally walking out of it that was one of my first impressions. The other was the blatant sort of like metaphors that ran throughout in terms of like the future is female and like the matriarchy is the only way to get out of this wartime politics. Like,
They get deep into that later.
like they get deep into that. Like, other than like those big overarching things, Etta Candy was the wow, really wow, because. Yeah, I mean, like, it's wartime racism and all that stuff too. But
And I'm going to read this warning, which I love.
Sadly.
I think the Golden Age one probably includes a similar one. This is, they go through different editions, but the warning they include for Wonder Woman Chronicles is, I've always found very striking. The comics reprinted in this volume were produced in a time when racism played a larger role in society and popular culture, both consciously and unconsciously. Which says a lot to me as a warning, where they're also not saying, in a time where racism existed and it doesn't anymore, they're also not saying, like, they're not making any judgment about what was intended or not intended. They're just sort of putting a, like, you're gonna run into some stuff in these, especially with the depiction of mostly Japanese folks in these stories.
A little bit of South America gets there too. A little bit of that.
A little bit.
Yeah, and even in the South American stories, you can tell that even they're starting to figure out that they're getting complicated. There's a couple moments where I'm like, you're figuring it out. It's okay. We'll figure it out later. But all right.
Though I will say I was impressed that in one of the, and this is jumping way into the deep end, there was an issue where Etta Candy's brother fell in love with a Hispanic woman, and I was like, okay, that great.
Yeah, they
good
had
for you, 40s. Okay. I didn't think that was possible back then, but here we are. That's fantastic.
When you settle down, you will be redlined out of being able to buy a house. But good luck to you. Like.
Oh my God! Where to even? Okay, so do we want to start with the professors as we knew them, or
Sure. Yes.
Professors Marston.
the Marstons?
So here is the background, and it's very interesting because there's first thing we should get on record is that a lot is known about the people who created Wonder Woman, and a lot will never be known.
Yes.
There are sort of prominent interpretations. There are different levels of evidence for those different interpretations, but there are some things that really only they are ever going to know about how their lives were.
Yeah.
They were very private people, and there are definitely what's the word? Like narratives that exist, but all of them are
Whether
should be
they're
taken
true
with a
or
grain of salt.
apocryphal, Yeah.
But we do know for a fact that they were super interesting.
Very interesting people.
Dr. William Moulton Marston was for most of his life, a psychologist, an occasional businessman, an occasional inventor, an occasional lots of things.
He was a multi-hyphenate.
He was.
Yeah, got around.
Man, I couldn't believe it's like the third story in here where they use blood pressure-based technology for things.
So quickly.
And it includes basically an already nuanced understanding that there could be multiple reasons for those responses, which is frequently cited as a criticism of. Anyway, I was like, well, that's in the story. They use it as a twist.
Yeah, I was like, oh damn. Oh, you go.
I definitely
Amazing.
get the unique sensation of this book that they were writing what they knew. And very, very much, and it was there was a lot in here that felt that it was very personal, which is.
So he was a psychologist, sort of enamored of the suffrage movement. Certainly, by pretty much any definition, like a proto-feminist who could see a lot of what was wrong in the world around him and had his own ideas about what would fix it. And among his professional accomplishments was some important graduate work where he made a link between variation in blood pressure and lie detector. He is sometimes falsely credited as the inventor of the lie detector test. He didn't do the machine, and the guy who made the machine is sort of like, it's not really unfair to say that he was a big. It's one of those, like, it's neither. It makes he is
had
linked
a hand
with
in
it.
inventing.
Yeah.
Yes.
He is an important part of like the development of what became the lie detector test, which has its own issues now because we are more familiar with the ways that lie detector tests can go wrong and why they are generally inadmissible in court. But it was an interesting, like, they were legit learning for the first time that variations of people's blood pressure might be able to reveal their responses to questions, and it was like an active field of psychology at the time.
He was also pioneering a field of psychology. There was a lot of interesting Psychology was very new at the time. There were a lot of interesting branches going off in various directions, not just the Jungian and the Reichian, Jungian and Freudian and Reichian, which also a lot of this early. But he had a system called DISC, which was eventually...
Yes, I don't know much about this.
The DISC assessment test.
Dominance, inducement, submission, and compliance on a two-axis system. A lot of this shows up in Wonder Woman. It's behavioral. It argues. I have just a couple links here. That behavioral types came from people's sense of self and their interaction with their environment, whether or not their environment was positive or negative towards them, and whether or not they felt positive or negatively towards their environment. And you would use these, basically would have people talk about themselves and do self-assessments to get an idea of how they felt about themselves and how they felt about their relationship to their environment. And he eventually published this in a book called Emotions of Normal People.
And that weird title is actually making a point, which was that the field of psychology was focusing a lot on essentially, people outside of the mainstream of reactions to things. And he's like, well, we aren't going to understand anything unless we also study people who aren't committing fabulous crimes. So here's the book I'm writing.
And the theory was, the first dimension is whether a person views his environment as favorable or unfavorable, and the second dimension is whether a person perceives himself as having a control or lack of control over his or her environment or their environment. This all came down to this DISC idea, which was eventually changed into something else that they used for evaluating people within business structures, but that's a whole nother deal. And with this DISC model, where am I trying? Was the idea that people are happiest when submitting to a loving or nurturing dominant force. This is where he gets a little weird, and a lot of this does show up in Wonder Woman. The idea of the ideal situation for a human being was having a controlling or controlling figure telling you what to do that was what you wanted to do in the first place. And it's when that controlling figure was trying to do things that you didn't want to do that you would go from submission to compliance. And compliance was something when you didn't want to do something. Submission is when you did.
Did he connect this to sort of traditional religious structures at all? Or
I don't know. I haven't read the book, but he did. This was a big push for him. Was his idea of like women would be better suited for certain leadership roles because people were more likely to follow them out of love rather than fear. And this was a thing of you would much more submit to somebody that you wanted to do what you were asking them to do. He was I mean, like there's.
I think that's
everybody who came from this era. There was a lot. This is where we get Freud and the cigar. There's a lot of reaching in the dark in the 1940s, trying to figure out, especially since psychology was coming out of what was at the time called propaganda theory. I mean, like there was a lot of people trying to figure out how people worked. And this was a very interesting
essentially, it was that sort of like submission versus compliance that he was saying, like, this is why women are better suited as leaders.
This was his theory.
And why we can stop wars in general if women are in charge, because we want to lovingly submit to them, whereas we don't want to lovingly submit to a man who is forcing us to, essentially. Okay,
interesting. I'm the least familiar with the actual academic side of his work. And we should mention that, like,
he hadn't met Thatcher yet. Let's be fair, but yes, there's, but
it was worth trying.
It was worth trying, and he definitely. There are definitely some interesting things that came out of this work, and the notion of how people will react to being told to do things they don't want to do versus being coerced, basically, into wanting to do them. Like the difference between making somebody work against their will or trying to change someone's will.
And it's fascinating. I've never seen this suggested as a link, but I can't help but wonder if this, to a certain extent, like the entire lost generation of writers post-World War I, basically a lot of people out there in the world were trying to figure out what on earth had just happened because the world tore itself apart for a war no one was excited about.
And like technology had advanced in such a strange way in World War I, where it was like, oh my God, we have that scale of destruction within us. Oh, gee.
The psychology movement was very much born out of a lot of people going like, we are no longer. We need to figure our shit out because we can now really hurt ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, because like you have like that's the first time you have like airplanes in combat. You're having like gas bombs like thrown at like tanks. Like there's a lot of firsts in World War I where you're just like, oh God, oh my God.
We're in a new world. Let's figure it out.
Someday we'll get into Reichian therapy and its connection to the comic book universe here, and that will get into a whole thing.
So his
but yeah.
legitimate academic credentials, by most accounts, sort of decrease over time in ways that may or may not be related to, like, it is sometimes suggested that the way his personal life went could have damaged his career. It is suggested in other places that he damaged his career. So he did various sort of sensational things, worked for movie companies, tried wacky experiments, did other things, but kept on writing and sort of publishing, and gathered himself a family who are a very important part of this story.
And so before we get any further, let's talk about Elizabeth Marston.
Elizabeth Holloway Marston. Right?
Elizabeth Holloway Marston, the second part of this, who was apparently a very well-studied attorney and a psychologist, and probably, and we know definitely helps with the blood pressure system, and was responsible for an enormous amount of this as well.
Including, I believe, pretty unanimously, when we skip forward to the part where they're going to create a comic book character, Elizabeth Holloway is sort of unanimously credited as the person going, well, you can do it, but you better make her a girl.
Mm-hmm. All sorts of odd little ends with her. She did a number of enormously interesting things. She was an editor for the Encyclopedia Britannica.
She was one of 3 women to graduate Boston University School of Law in 1918. 3 women.
3. You can see, like, it's one of the reasons to me that it's so striking that Wonder Woman shows up and immediately, like, has so many women in her story, is that, like, women in certain fields, like, when it's easy to be like, here's one woman and a million dudes, which was what life could be like for people in certain areas. And so it, you know.
So she was, and so there was a third member of this family who was very.
So Marston and Elizabeth Holloway were I know they're like, I want to revisit this topic over the years as I track down more and more closer sources on this, because I know a lot of their story in outline, but there's more sources. Like we'll hopefully keep revisiting this for many years.
Oh yeah.
Marston and Holloway were a team sort of from a relatively young age, got married, and then at a certain point, their family expanded.
And with the involvement of Olive Byrne?
Olive Byrne, who is a fascinating character who, in her own right, who probably deserves a book of her own, but sadly...
I should say, I have not seen the recent Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman movie.
I hear it's lovely, but I also hear that it's very that it's an interesting interpretation, given filling in an awful lot of blanks with idle thought is the best I've heard of.
A plausible but not provable.
In the vein of From Hell, it's like all of these pieces fit together. Although they do change. I definitely know that they change DC Comics' attitude towards taking him. It's less of them going to him, going like, what should we do? And a little more.
I mean, some of this is standard biopic, like there's always going to be things, but we can't evaluate it yet because we haven't seen it. But I did hear it was good.
I heard it's quite a bit of fun, but should not necessarily be taken as fact.
Okay.
So a movie.
Movies.
Yeah. So there's that they had to conjecture an awful lot and definitely take liberties with what is.
But here's what we do know. Olive Byrne was a student of Marston's.
Tufts.
Who ultimately came to join their family unit. Each of those women would end up having kids with Marston. The 3 of them lived together as like a family, raising the 4 kids. And after Dr. Marston's death, Elizabeth and Olive lived together for the rest of their mutual lives. That part, all of those are facts.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, they had a very interesting life where, it being the late 30s, early 40s, you really, honesty was not an option for them, which tends to make me forgiving of the fact that they were just like wildly fraudulent, where like Olive was writing articles about their family as if she was just didn't know them when she was like literally part of the family.
Olive was also interesting that the daughter of Ethel Byrne, which would have been a big deal back then, was one of the first, opened the first birth control clinic in the United States.
With her sister.
This, with Margaret Sanger. I mean, this was, so came from a definite background of what would have been at the time.
And I've heard that a lot of this is well covered in Jill Lepore's book, Secret History of Wonder Woman, which I have not read yet.
Is that the one I'm reading right
It could be, and I also know, and apparently there's another book that's being compiled right now. So I heard that actually the family is apparently cooperating with. So we may know more at some point. I'm deeply fascinated by these people, though. I find them a really interesting view into a chunk of. There's little pockets of people throughout history that I'm very fascinated by, and like this and the JPL kids in the 1940s.
Oh, yeah.
I want to know what they were up to.
Same.
Really badly.
So, and in case there's reading between the lines to be done, we don't know the precise nature of the relationship between the three principal adults in that family.
And probably never will.
We probably never will. There are
Like short of
lot of
finding a secret
plausible-
journey or a journal, yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of plausible
bedpost.
configurations of that, which we in 2018 can easily imagine happening, that all of which in any combination would have been very shocking to the people in the late 30s and early 40s, which explains why they didn't leave great documentary evidence of whatever their life was like.
They all published quite a bit. They all worked quite well, and what few photographs we have of them, they tend to be photographs of, especially for the time, surprisingly happy people having a very nice life. So that is kind of the best that we can leave them at that point, other than the fact that they gave us this amazing. And now we found a couple other people, of course, who are involved now in Wonder Woman. I know you were very excited because you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she doesn't come in year one.
She
I
doesn't
checked
come
her
in year
earliest
one.
stories. But within a few years of the creation of Wonder Woman, another of Marston's students, Joy Murchison Kelly, came in and started ghostwriting stories from the budding Marston Harry Peters creative office. Can we come back into a year 2 and a year 3 and a year 4?
I would love to have her as a. I mean, we'll never have her as a guest, but if we could, it would be amazing.
Yeah.
Just sit and hear whatever that was like. I can't even imagine.
But it does seem certainly clear that everyone in that house shared a desire for conditions for women to be a lot better than they were in the late 30s, early 40s. And the basic, like, a thing that you all heard me say, but like that I found really comforting about hearing Joy Murchison Kelly speak this summer, whom I hadn't known existed, is that she essentially testified to the, like, the project they were going on was essentially what I want it to have been, which was create a kick-ass female hero who will inspire people and represent that we want the world to be less shitty to women. She didn't use those words because she's a very nice older lady. She said, when someone asked what Dr. Marston would think of Wonder Woman's long life and continued thing, she said that she thought he'd be very exciting to see so many gals out there doing their thing. It was the cutest thing in the world. And that, as sort of, it may be with the hindsight of the happy, what do you call when rose-colored glasses of memory? I don't know, benefit of hindsight.
Rose-colored glasses.
I'm sure that I know that I can
You can
feel
tell
the
what I'm
phrase that
trying
you're
to
looking
say.
for, but I can't quite grab it.
Rose-colored nostalgia.
Yeah.
Nostalgia.
It's that whole thing of like, oh, I pine for the good old days. It's like, well, but were they good old days, or do you remember them being good old
Well,
days?
what I
forbid
find a
this is
relief
good
is
old
that
days.
rather than being like, yeah, I worked with that guy, it was a black mark in my memory and he was a real scuzzbag, she still sounds affectionate and positive about that whole period of her life and
Yeah.
about working with him, which I found greatly relieving because you just never know.
You never know.
There's the interesting thing in looking into this is that even with the most basic of what we have, and we have so little, and it's so frustrating. All three of these people have at least some touch of this character that they can definitely attest to as being part of the creation. So, like, no matter like is Wonder Woman based off one of them more than the other, any of that ridiculousness, we can say for a fact that that it was an article written by Olive called "Don't Laugh at the Comics." Which got the attention of Max Gaines, who then talked to Marston about creating a new comic book character.
You should remember the name Max Gaines
about
from
to
our
say.
several comic book code episodes. Max Gaines, of course, was Bill Gaines' father, one of the first of the names that you run into in the history of comics as they're being invented. And comics almost immediately ran into a respectability problem of, are they warping the minds of kids? What, it's a new medium, panic. And so...
And so he approached Dr. Marston about making a comic book that would champion these ideals.
Or I may have cut you off.
Oh, no, go ahead.
The article essentially said, like, comics, not only not bad for kids, maybe even good. Like
Maybe
some
even
offense.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it led to them eventually having a conversation about making a book that they thought would be a positive influence with a positive role model. And it was
Propaganda for the new type of woman whom I believe should rule the world.
Elizabeth Marston said, "Yeah, you can do whatever you like. Just make it. You got to make a female character. It's just you got to do it. There's just no reason not to." And so all three of them inevitably contributed to this notion of what the book should be, or even getting the book made in the first place. There's a lot of conversations about like the bracelets come from Olive, and then like
Because she loved wearing bracelets.
she had a big, and you can see
had
them
a
in
big,
some of the
jingle
pictures. She had
jangle,
these big chunky bracelets, and like that's silly. That's ephemera, though.
But, you know.
But maybe
Maybe true, maybe not. But that is definitely one of those
I
ephemeral.
don't know. Did anyone ever ask Carrie Peters about that?
I
I know very little about that guy.
I know.
Although I know that he, as a cartoonist, worked with, at some point, with Lou Rogers, who was a different cartoonist, who is the artist. I put something in the Dropbox, which is a basic. It's a 1943 image of Wonder Woman, but it gives you a great grounding in terms of the iconography that they were working with as they developed this character, and the way it drew on the history of women's suffrage, which, of course, you will nearly all know was the movement to try to stop having it be illegal for women to vote. So somewhere in the Dropbox, there's,
Yep, there we go.
So this is 1912 on the left. Lou Rogers, who was a lady, has drawn a cartoon of the spirit of a million women voters.
I'll bring that back.
Yeah, sorry, we'll just talk over this one for a sec, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Politics is no place for women is what she's being restrained by, and she's not having it. She is tearing off the bonds.
Spirit of 1 million women voters.
You know, topical for this week, just saying. And then on the right, we have Wonder Woman, 1943, who is tearing the bonds of prejudice, of prudery, which is a specific concern that I'll go into later, but you've all heard my rant on this. It was a fight that we essentially won, but needed to be fought, and breaking the bonds of man's superiority. So this is, I love that side by side, because it's just like, yes, this is what they're doing. The analogies about improving the social condition of women were frequently drawn, as awkward as it sometimes is to read now, from sort of very clunky slavery metaphors in terms of like the freedom to control your own life.
Well, and this is one of the reasons, like what we're doing now is one of the reasons I love doing these shows of like the year ones, like because it contextualizes the creation of the character and what the character stood for and what the artists were putting into it, you know, and it's like, it's important to know that history because that informs who the character was then, how they were developed through time. Because when you look at that and then you look at the Wonder Woman of the 60s where they essentially took all of her power away and put her in a pantsuit and they were like, yeah, women's lib. It's like, oh, you did the opposite. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Stop.
I have to get into that at some point.
But it's like, when you see it from that perspective, it completely changes the story. You know, like it's a little bit easier for us when it's like, oh yeah, Venom, Spider-Man 300, like early 90s, like we get it, you know, but like 1941, 1942, like very few of us were alive then, you know, to know this
I mean,
history.
Taliesin was, but
I was.
Yeah, but Talisin's been around since like what, 1700?
I was, to be fair, I was very
remember.
busy through the 40s. I was not reading comic books at the time. I think.
You were reading Amazing Stories.
Amazing
you didn't
Stories.
buy those in London. You just couldn't wait to show us your original collection.
you got them from the secret box that you still keep in London?
Well, you know, I have a vault. So,
By the way, we will be doing our 5-minute topics, so don't forget to get those topics into us. We'll be doing that at the end of the episode.
So with that in mind, getting into the actual comics of it, I found it fascinating to sort of look at how many elements of superheroes accrete slowly over time. But like a lot of Wonder Woman is right there.
It's right there.
Just immediately.
No fucking around at all.
I think I pulled All-Star page 1. I think that's in the Dropbox as well. Just to like our very first
You're
look.
an all-star.
Yeah. All-Star Comics number 8 was the first appearance of Wonder Woman.
God, look at that.
She's not on the cover of that issue because nobody planned ahead, or rather, you know, you really never knew who was going to be your big deal.
Too quick.
We're going to look at that one more. Sorry.
Thank you for dealing with us, Chief.
Thanks. Don't turn
Thanks,
the cameras
Chief.
off. You have ultimate power, but something about loving submission, I don't know.
There we go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
At
Thank you,
last,
Chief.
in a world torn by the hatreds and wars of men, appears a woman to whom the problems and feats of men are mere child's play. A woman whose identity is known to none, but whose sensational feats are outstanding in a fast-moving world. With 100 times the agility and strength of our best male athletes and strongest wrestlers, she appears as though from nowhere to avenge an injustice or right a wrong. As lovely as Aphrodite, as wise as Athena, with the speed of Mercury and the strength of Hercules, she is known only as Wonder Woman. But who she is or whence she came, nobody knows. And then they immediately tell you.
And then immediately now everybody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I love that, like, from the very first sentence, Moulton is saying, hey, you know all these wars that we're stuck in that really suck? Yeah, they're men's fault and women can solve it.
It's funny
Like,
because
it's
like
from the first sentence, and that's like according to this. I mean, again, like going back to this book that I've been reading, Wonder Woman Unbound by Tim Hanley.
oh, I need to read that one.
It's fantastic.
Good.
It is a fantastic study, and what's great about that book is it contextualizes Wonder Woman with Catwoman and Lois Lane and other females. Comic book characters of the time,
Yeah.
and says, here's what they were all doing, and here's how Wonder Woman was different, and why she was such a big deal. When you look at it in that
Because that
contrast,
author has done separate books on those characters.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. So it's a relatively quick read. Like I'm already halfway through it. I think it's pretty quick, but I forgot what I was saying anyway.
Oh, you were saying, but from the start, it.
So the point that this guy is making is that like the Moulton Marston was like his inspiration was, we've got to stop these dadgum wars. And the only way to stop them is for people to realize that we should all lovingly submit to female superiority. And the only way for me to really get that message across to kids is in comic books. So he was kind of like your neighbor, the dentist, who gives you toothbrushes at Halloween. That's what he was essentially doing with Wonder Woman.
That's
He's like,
mean. That's
kids like
mean.
comic books. Here's your toothbrush.
But it also.
But it worked, and it was the best toothbrush ever.
And in another important way, sort of,
for laughing.
he
Yeah.
was putting out there concrete examples. It's funny because we've gotten into this before. Like, on a personal level, we unfortunately know as we move into the future that women are capable of every evil thing that men are capable of. We will not magically stop all wars by having women involved in things. But on the other hand, he was dead right about the fact that women not having equal social standing with men was messed up and needed to be fixed.
Sure.
It was like, and a strong example. I'm fascinated by the art in these books specifically because Wonder Woman is drawn as a glamour girl, but her storytelling-wise, she's an action hero. There are amazing action. She does not walk through these books like a pinup girl. Like, she is just throwing giant objects and right-hooking people, and in many
And she's
ways.
riding kangaroo horses on Paradise Island.
The kangaroos, I love the kangaroos.
The concrete example of those books in the toothbrush, but in the good way sense, they really were doing the job of being like, we're going to tell a story where a woman gets shit done because we need more of that out in the world. And it was 1941. They did. I guess probably most of our audience is going to be aware of this, but World War II and the lead up to World War II, that period is associated in American history strongly with later advances in women's rights because these stories predate our official involvement in the war, but World War II is marked by men going off to war, lots of women joining the workforce, women getting forced back out of the workforce who had been in it during the war, and the resulting tensions post-World War II gave rise to second-wave feminism in the 60s and a lot. So this is all the context.
There's so much context.
Yeah.
But no, while she's definitely dressed that way, she's very rarely portrayed doing anything other than just behaving like very much as a lot.
Everybody comments on the fact that she's running around in a bathing suit, but there are no actual panty shots.
Yeah, no, it's all like, I love this piece. This is, from the comics Cavalcade cover. You get Green Lantern, The Flash, and Wonder Woman, and I love that they're all like having the race together.
And Wonder Woman's winning.
A galaxy of a great American comics or American
they don't take advantage of. Well, it's interesting. Here's another wonderful page a splash page that would definitely
where she got to go back to Paradise Island and compete with her sisters.
And I will admit, there are certain fanciful things I love about these books. I love the kangaroos. I will never get over the kangaroos.
They show up in like her 5th appearance. They go back and add the kangaroos in because that makes me wonder, like, who was like, you know what we should have had? We should have had kangaroos.
Well, I was paying because I was waiting because I used to have a pop-up book as a kid. I had a Wonder Woman pop-up book. I was obsessed with the kangaroos. Because you could like make the kangaroos joust by pulling the two, and I was just like, this is the best thing ever. They should have kangaroo fight. People should ride kangaroos for everything. There is a weird offhanded mention, because there were no kangaroos when you first go to Paradise Island. There's nothing there.
Right.
And then there's an offhanded mention of kangaroos that are completely unrelated somewhere else in the book. I think someone had a thing for kangaroos. Because they do mention quietly, and then 2 issues later, you see the first kangaroo on Paradise Island. I'm like, kangaroos. There you go. I think someone just really likes.
Got a thing for kangaroos, man. Some people got a thing for kangaroos.
They are adorable and violent.
Yeah.
They're both really great.
Do we know why he was writing his name Charles Moulton on these?
I think it was just a pen name to try and keep some sort of civility, I imagine.
Yeah, or like
But he was
maybe
like a publicly known psychologist attesting to the positive value of comics. Was it a secret that he was working on these?
maybe, I don't know. I didn't come across anything like that, but it is interesting to
maybe a soft.
I mean, because like comics have never been seen like Golden Age into the Silver Age. Comics were not really seen as a viable
not a serious professional thing to do.
Yeah. You know, like Stan Lee. Yeah.
I want to say that I did find the best panel of sorority girls. I'm so proud of this.
I'm glad that you pulled this one.
I have to pull this out because there's so much happening here that I'm so excited with.
So for the record, this is a bunch of college girls who are following Etta Candy, who is following Steve Rogers, Trevor, who is chasing a German spy. They're in a giant caravan.
She's after Steve Trevor, and she ought to know better. And I love that the car.
Etta, let's go get her. She's after Steve Trevor, and she ought to know better.
Blondes prefer gentlemen.
Mm-hmm. The graffiti.
This car is paid for is yours.
And that's an assertion of female economic power.
Yeah.
It's a weird little boast by rich college girls, but somehow placed in context is like just another part of this totally wild backup that she has. I want to know who BC and JD are.
I do too. I'm curious about
Friends
BC.
of the artist, maybe? Friends of the letterers? Please tell us the story of BC and JD on the side of the favorite jalopy of Etta Candy's college backup from chasing German
I think that was
spies.
the thing that kind of like hit me the hardest was Wonder Woman really did depend on her team, like in a major way. And I feel like that was another thing that Moulton Marston was saying is men like go in and like punch first and are like, haha, I win. Whereas women are like, punch, but like I also need backup, and we're gonna do this together. And
so there is one point where she has Steve and his ensign buddy, and they've jumped into action, but like in a way that made things more complicated. So the next time she's like, "Wait here, don't be heroes," and then she jumps off to fight the Nazis.
There's so much. So let's talk about some other interesting things that appear in these first issues.
Yes.
Telepathy.
Yep. Did you guys know that Wonder Woman's telepathic?
But specifically for radio calls?
Yeah, she's like radiopathic.
Not just randomly reading your mind.
There's this, and I'm amazed that they haven't turned this into a toy that you can purchase because it's so, and I hate to use this phrase and I apologize, toyetic. It is so toyetic. I feel dirty. It is actually, and it's one of those things that they have like these little. It's also reminds me so much of Sailor Moon. They have these like little tiny temples of Athena. It looks like the traditional temple of Athena, except that where the door would be by Mattel. You just get a telepathic vision like a Dick Tracy.
Are we talking about the same device where Etta puts the little crown on to receive the message?
Yep.
Oh yeah, there's the crown, and there's also just
and my favorite is that like you can leave. I think you can leave messages. Like it's like
complicated.
You can leave a telepathic message on there. So
here.
If they're not on it at the exact second.
Yep.
Mental radio. Yep.
Is picking up that her mom is going to call.
I have a feeling that someone is trying to send me a mental. So she's kind of got a pager in her head, and then can also. This is something the only other place I've ever seen any mention of these powers is in the Grant Morrison Earth 1 books.
Yes.
Nowhere else has this shown up in my reality.
Which I haven't read yet, and I'm very curious because you've been reporting in on those.
I cannot wait to have a conversation about those books because it is such an interesting interpretation of this Wonder Woman, very specifically this Wonder Woman, and like they ignore everything else that's happened, and they basically just try and do like a modern take on the first 50 issues and nothing else. I'm very curious. But yeah, that pops up quite a few times in that. But other than that, I thought that was just Grant being Grant. I was not aware this was Grant actually. I had forgotten. I'd read these books and I'd forgotten about this.
Always assume Grant is pulling weird stuff from the original.
Yeah.
God, it's so deep.
Grant loves that.
I'm trying to see if I have any other
I like
mental.
to say that as if I know Grant. Grant.
Our buddy Grant, yeah.
Our good friend Grant.
Granty baby.
Oh my God.
There we go. Here's
May I call you Teddy Baby?
yeah. Here's her just leaning on her magic telepathy box. I think she actually, this is when she gives, this was the episode where she gives Steve his own telepathy box for Christmas. I give you this mental ready with the blessings of the goddess Diana, or because it is Diana Day, because they have a winter festival in her culture, which is the blessing of Diana, as opposed to Christmas. I don't actually know if that works out.
I think it's hilarious.
It's amazing.
Oh,
that's swell of you, Angel. And weirdly, like Steve Trevor's thing with calling her Angel.
every issue.
But it comes-
I
it
hate
comes-
it because she literally
comes from a
is his
thing.
guardian angel and keeps saving his life.
Yeah.
And there is that one beautiful moment where she goes, "Angel, I think I'd rather be a woman," but like.
I actually picked up on that too. I was like, all right, good for you.
It's weird because I read these really generously, and I know that I do that because there's all this craziness in there where she's like, of course, as a woman, I love shopping, and all this unnecessary focus on being beautiful and strong.
I
but
sure do love my outfits.
While it's doing that, it's doing everything I want.
I'm so excited to have the Grant talk with you after you read that. 'Cause they actually, one of the big changes he makes in the book is that the Steve relationship is purely platonic in his book. They are not romantically involved at all.
Interesting.
They just drop that entirely.
I'm not super
which I
mad
like.
at the falls in love with the man
No.
who comes to the island. I know some people dislike it because it makes her motivation about falling in love with a dude instead of saving the world. But from the first in these, it's both. It's always both.
It's a super positive platonic relate. Like they obviously love each other, but it's like this. And then the other thing is they create that version of Wonder Woman out of her relationship with Candy, who's just like, I'm gonna dress you up. Oh my God! And you're just like, of course.
And that I love the outfit picking scene in the Wonder Woman movie.
Oh, yeah.
Scott,
that was
because it was a
fantastic.
beautiful reference to her trying to fit in this world that also sort of like, it's funny because their different phases of feminism are interesting in different ways because fighting for the right for women to not care about shopping eventually also arises that it's okay if you do. It's all of those battles have to be fought at once. So that's always really interesting. But
look, and I pulled a couple. I mean, we should probably hit some other things that pop up in this.
Please.
This I don't know if we're at yet, which is when they start talking about. I found like a whole bunch of like the calendar when you get into what happens on the island. Okay, so we have an invisible jet.
Invisible jet shows up right away.
Issue
And this
2.
is
It's a special Amazonian technology.
The idea in this is that the Amazons have sort of a magic mirror technology that's let them keep up with the whole world, and it's why they all know modern languages and modern technology, and it, in some ways, superior technology because they have it says they can look at all times, even the future, but the first one's the latest date is both 1941 and the 3 months in the future, 1942. Mm-hmm. There's no 2075 on there.
Otherwise, they'd all have iPhones.
Yeah. But it is interesting that they just right away they're like, yeah, we've got all kinds of weird technology, but we still play with gun fights and bracelets.
And kangaroos and
bullets and bracelets, our favorite game. Yay, bullets and bracelets.
Which
yay.
arrives immediately.
Immediately, bullets and bracelets is a big deal.
Can I throw out another thing that really surprised me is how she got the name Diana Prince.
Wow! Are we gonna talk about Diana Prince? Oh,
Yeah,
I'm in.
identity theft.
Yeah,
she infiltrates the army and then spends her career rooting out spies.
It's and like.
All right, so for those of you who don't know,
Yep.
Diana arrives with Steve Trevor and needs to watch over Steve Trevor because she's in love with him, and also he is her connection to the world.
And she has been kind of given this.
And she's been kind of given a mission to watch over him, right?
We'll go over, like, here's the origin as you get it from basically her first appearance, sort of astonishingly intact. The version you get in the first appearance gets slightly retconned later, and they add more elements.
Wonder Woman issue 1.
But yeah, which comes after the first appearances because you have to prove yourself before you get your own book. So there's an army intelligence guy gets accidentally involved in a spy plot where they are bombing domestic installations, but then once they've kidnapped him, they're going to blame it on him. And to prove that this enemy plot is going on, which at the time is sort of if they could prove it, we'd get involved in the war. It's because we're not involved yet. So that's part of why he has to track down and prove that an enemy agent is doing this bombing. He follows that plane out to sea until he runs out of gas, essentially. And that is the original circumstance for him crashing on an unknown island where he is found by a girl and her best friend who are like, can't let this guy die. Mala?
Mala, yeah, Mala.
Interestingly, in those first ones, her mother's like, obviously we can't let the guy die. Like, it's in the early ones, they're just like, well, we can't let him know anything, but we obviously have to fix him up because we're not monsters.
So we'll blindfold him, tie him up. There's a lot of blindfolding and tying up in this.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's a lot of bondage, yeah.
We need a whole separate.
That's a whole separate.
Like,
that,
That's a whole
that,
other
that we'll
part
get
of it,
into.
But
It's part of it, but there's a whole other, there's so much.
Blind him, tie him up.
quickly, they're sort of like, what do we do with this guy? They use their magic mirror to figure out that he was in the middle of an important mission, and they have enough sensitivity to being like, oh man, messed up stuff is happening out in the world. We kind of gotta help this guy finish his mission. They consult with the patron goddesses, and they're like, yeah, you do. You gotta help him with
Kinda
his
gotta
mission.
help him.
You can't hide in your paradise of like escape from man's world forever. Send somebody. Send a champion. So they have a contest. Diana wants to enter it. Her mom doesn't want her to enter.
She wears a domino mask.
Yeah, extremely
'Cause that's
effective disguise.
all you need to fool your mother.
And to be fair, even her mom was like, I know it was you. I was
hoping
really.
hoping
The
it wasn't.
second time they tell it, they must have gotten embarrassed because that's when they introduce her being like, and I kind of ducked down when I went past mom so she wouldn't see me.
She's like, I faked tripping because my mother was so close to me at that point.
Yeah. So Diana wins the contest because she's the best. And at this point, we haven't learned anything about her being made from clay, but we do have the canonical origin of the Amazons as coming from ancient Greece, as getting betrayed by Hercules, and their patron
Who
goddess.
stole the girdle.
magic girdle.
From Hippolyta.
Which comes from myths.
Yeah.
Like him getting the girdle of the Queen of the Amazons is from old myth. But in
It's
this
part of
one,
his 12
I think one of the
feats, right? I
labors,
think, yeah,
right?
Yeah, one of the 12 labors.
So in this version of it, their patron goddess is Aphrodite, and she's like, I told you not to trust dudes, and you did, and look what happened, so I abandoned you for a while, and then you pray hard, and I'm like, okay, fine, I will give you the power to rescue yourselves, give you the girdle back, but you have to sort of, like, get yourselves away from dudes, or because they can't be trusted.
And that's where the bracelets of submission come from, is because they're supposed to wear those bracelets as a reminder of the submission that you once had that you no longer do.
Yeah, as a symbol
do that
of
again.
your freedom. Don't let them put you in chains again.
Yeah.
But go off and I'll give you an immortal paradise to live in with Athena. The Hera's not really involved, and I'm interested by that because we're about to get Kelly Sue DeConnick's take on Amazon mythology.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of Hera coming in that one.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was all supposed to be set up for her winning the contest, going back to do this sincere from the goddesses, from Hippolyta. Everybody blesses this mission of like, someone will have to give up their place in paradise to go help the world.
And
help
immortality.
this guy finish his mission. And since she's also kind of fallen in love with him because he's the first dude she's ever seen, which is a classic of like straight romance stories, it works out differently in other configurations. She gets the mission, she takes him back to the world where, now we're to the part that I preempted.
Okay, thank you for the preamble. So I think, doesn't she, while she's waiting for Steve Trevor to wake up, she joins like a show?
Oh yeah, she drops him off, she bounces.
She's like, peace, take care of this guy. He's unconscious, he's in a coma, he has no idea where he is.
I'm not telling you anything, bye.
Bye. She jumps out the window, everyone's like, what?
It's not that far off.
She stops like a car theft or a bank robbery.
Yeah.
And some like Broadway producer's like, hey, you, hey, you there, gal. Hey, you just stopped those guys and you blocked bullets with your bracelets. We can do a show off with that. And she's like, all right, that sounds great. So then she joins a Broadway show, and the show is entirely
It's like
just
a vaudeville thing, right?
It's basically a vaudeville act.
Yeah, they just do a gig.
The show is literally just shoot at this lady who no one knows, and she'll block it with her bracelets. That's the show. But he makes a lot of money, and then she gets a phone call about Steve Trevor, and she's like, oh, I've got to go take care of Steve Trevor. I'm going to bounce. Can you give me my money? And he's like, no. And he takes off. She takes her money back, and she goes back to the hospital, and they won't let her in. And she's like, yeah, that's right. I'm someone that they don't know. Hey, this woman on the front steps of the hospital who's a nurse and is crying.
I love this because it is one of her first, like, she's in the world. She helps the people with the holdup because when she sees problems, she just handles them.
She just
and,
can't
like,
help herself.
She doesn't approach this woman because she thinks it's going to be like a plan to help her. She's just like, oh man, that lady's crying. What? Can I help you? She's just like, hey, are you okay? What's wrong?
Yeah, what's
like,
wrong? I have an empathetic heart and I want to help you. You poor woman. And she's like, oh, my husband is in the army, or my fiance is in the army, and he just got transferred to South America, and I can't go with him because, or like, I'm gonna lose my job, something.
He can't afford to bring me down there. We don't have the money, and so I can't go marry my fiance.
So this woman's name is Diana Prince. And she's a nurse
who looks an awful lot like
she looks exactly
Wonder
like
Woman.
Princess Diana, Wonder Woman. And she says, hey, my name is Diana. Your name is Diana. How about, here's all the money that I just made from this vaudeville thing. You can use that.
I'm also a nurse, so this will be fine.
To go to your husband in South America. By the way, I'm also a nurse. So why don't you give me your identity papers? I will take over as Diana Prince. Thank God we look the exact same. Coincidence. And you can go be with your husband in South America with this money, and I can be with the man that I love and help him out and have an identity in this new world. And she's like, sounds fair. Handshake. Now she's Diana
irony
Prince.
of the fact that she then spends the next several years rooting out foreign agents trying to infiltrate
While being a foreign
America.
agent who infiltrated American intelligence herself.
But she did it for rad reasons.
Oh, yeah, no, she ends up the secretary and stenographer, and because she's there's a whole.
Once Steve's better, she just switches jobs over to using the power of being underestimated as a woman, which is hilarious. When they're like, why don't you want to be a nurse anymore? And she's like, I don't know, you put me in surgery and I don't like blood.
I'm blood, and they're like, oh, typical woman.
And then they just move her wherever she wants to go.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like when Steve Trevor wakes up, she's like, wait, no, can I be your secretary? I'll go anywhere.
Well, she becomes his coworker in the way that was available to her at the time.
And she becomes the executive assistant to the colonel in charge of Army intelligence.
Sure, like you do.
Just right up. Yeah. She takes dictation. That's how she gets her job.
She does it. She
takes dictation better than anybody, which explains why she's the JSA secretary.
They actually oh God. Oh man.
But she has a great comment where she's like, she's pretending to do shorthand, and she's like, yeah, I keep forgetting that they don't train their women to have like the same memories that I do here.
Yeah.
Because she's just good at everything. She can do everything.
Everything.
And what I love is that, like, again,
they think she's a spy again because
another of the women, and it's so funny because, like, of course they are cartoonish and they are 40s, but like these side characters who could just be total write-offs, like that, like the woman who is actually Steve Trevor's secretary is like, dude, that wasn't shorthand. What's your deal?
Yeah.
Like, and she's not, you expect her immediately to be the spy, and they play with that to mislead you. Like, I don't know, I'm surprised and impressed every time I revisit these by the things that are sophisticated and cool about these stories. Like, they're legit adventure stories.
Yeah, and even some, like Dr. Poison as a villain immediately excited.
Oh yeah,
impressed me.
like issue 2 is Dr. Poison. It's like, oh wow.
They go right into Dr. Poison and make her really fascinating and give her, like, I love the what was it, the opposite poison?
The reverso.
Reverso.
You know how I just complimented their sophistication? Dr. Poison creates reverso, which makes you do the opposite of the orders. So it throws the army into disarray.
Stop hitting yourself. Yeah. Yeah,
Is it wrong that I still love it?
I know.
I loved it.
I
It
was
is
all
so
over that
40s.
shit.
It is
I was
so
all
40s.
over that. I was giggling. I was giggling so much.
For those of you who don't know, I'm so excited that I get to do that.
Please.
So for those of you, wow, I'm so
in love with today's topic that I am doing a terrible job of being have we given the basic information?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know,
How is the internet?
no, the internet is great. Yeah, we
Hi,
don't
guys.
talk about the JSA thing.
No, we don't.
Katie.
Hi.
When does that happen chronologically? How far do we have to get before she starts showing
They
up?
mention there's actually an episode. Is my hair just going everywhere?
It was a little messed up. I
Bless
fixed it
you.
for you.
Thank you.
You're okay now.
Thank
You're
you.
okay.
Prune.
Your hair is so soft.
Thank you. I condition.
welcome.
I use
cool.
I have condition.
Congratulations. It's very nice.
She mentions that there's an issue. I want to say like issue 6 of Sensational Comics, issue 7, where they actually backtrack to say like she was using a power that she got on her last mission to Venus with the Justice Society, and she talked to the Venusians and got a thing. And I'm like, they literally throw that out there.
Why aren't those stories included in my rundown of all the chronological stuff?
They didn't include them in mine either. If that makes you feel better, they did not They did not go into that.
Oh man, I totally forgot. This is outside of our scope, but there's a random panel later on where she's talking to someone and goes, "Don't be afraid, Marva. Psycho can't hurt you. He has no power over you except what you give him," which is one of those like, you can't just throw that into the same bizarre cartoonish 40s comics. Like, what?
So
How dare
Psycho,
you?
by the way, is Dr. Psycho, one of Wonder Woman's very first early on villains. So Reverso, Dr. Poison creates this poison and puts it into the Army's water supply at this one particular Army camp, and it makes the soldiers do the opposite of what they're told. So when the
Dr. Poison.
Dr. Poison, yeah, sorry, did I not say that?
You said Dr. Psycho.
No,
Different
Dr. Psycho in reference to what she was saying from that book. Yeah, Dr. Poison is in this one. So the Army sergeant's like, "All right, men, forward." And they're like, "All right, I guess we're supposed to go backwards." And they all start marching backwards. And they're like, "To action, men." And they're like, "I guess we got to take off our clothes."
No, the best one is when he's like, "Suit up," and they're just like, "Why is he making us undress?"
Yeah, they're like, "All right, Sergeant said undress." And they're like, "No, put your clothes back on." Like, yeah,
It's
so
the
like, and then
ridiculous plot.
it's in the newspaper. And Dr. Poison's like, "Ha ha ha, look at what I did to your precious army, Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor."
The weird thing is, pretty much all these adventures are America-set domestic adventures about people messing with the preparations for war, or the training, or the supplies, or all of it is sort of happening here. Partly, probably because we're not literally in the war yet, and partly, I mean, we get there basically at the exact same time that she comes into existence.
Well, yeah, because Pearl Harbor happens the same month she premieres.
Super weird. Yep. But like
But that also would mean that story was written before Pearl Harbor, which would explain a lot about why the first 3 or 4 issues of Wonder Woman are all German, like fighting Germans, and then around issue 4, 5, 6, that's when the Japan starts getting pulled into it.
Yeah.
So it's actually kind of interesting to look at the timeline in that way to see like what kind of propaganda is going on.
There's it's called there's a thing from like cultural studies or educational viewpoints called like conflict partners that sort of looks at like the way that we start discussing, like Russia shows up a lot more in our literature once the Cold War happens. That kind of like as awareness comes and goes and spikes, like.
Well, it's like the Klingons, like in the original series, are, like supposed to be like the Russians in the Cold War, but it's like, no, look, we're having a hard time with each other, but we're starting to get along. So I don't. What am I talking about? I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting No Klingons. Wonder Woman.
I'm trying to find this panel because now I'm really.
Which panel?
I'm trying to find the JSA mention.
Oh.
Because I do remember it and I know where.
So the prudery thing is interesting. We've discussed this on previous Wonder Woman episodes, but like her original outfit is basically like flappy culottes. Like they are shorts right from the start, but they usually kind of look like a skirt.
Yeah.
And she immediately shows up and everybody else is like, that lady's nearly naked. And the context there, for people who might not know, is that like, we were only a decade or 2 removed from the idea of like it being illegal for women to have bathing suits that were above their ankles. Like, this was sort of an active battle to be like, it is okay to not be covered up.
Yeah.
Which was thoroughly won by the end of the 20th century to the point that now I'm like, okay, it's cool. People can have pants now.
Yeah.
2018.
You can wear pants. It's cool.
Some of them have pockets.
But it made perfect sense at its time. And I'm curious what you all think, because there's one of the debates over her value as a feminist character is the fact that like running around in a bathing suit and being incredibly glamorous can in some ways be seen as at odds with a mission of making people take women more seriously and let them be full and normal participants.
I think anyone who's looking to a comic book to be taken more seriously is barking up the wrong tree.
Oh, but clearly I take her seriously, and I take the things that she put into kids' brains pretty seriously.
I agree with you, but I think there's an iconography that you have to, the same way that I am certainly not going to not take Superman seriously because he's wearing underoos.
Fair.
In the same place, and I'll say that there is such a thing as over-sexualizing the outfit, which can happen, especially if it's being built for a particular gaze. But this clearly wasn't, and I'll also say that I've seen so many interesting iterations of this costume that are both, and everything from scantily clad to extremely covered to obviously to sexy to flattering. There's so many different ways to do a Wonder Woman costume that really makes sense for the character. That there's no. I'm honestly kind of surprised that we're ever getting hung up on it in the first place, and why it seems to be a character that when you do the costume poorly, it is so obvious. Either a costume that is way too much in one direction or way too much in the other. Like the white pantsuit being a perfect example of.
I would be I'm really excited for us to eventually cover that stuff, because I've read only tiny pieces of it, and I'm wondering whether we'll all fall in love with it when we finally sit down with it, or whether we'll just be like, what were they thinking?
Well, and especially this particular Wonder Woman, especially the original Wonder Woman, there's a lot of conversations happening in these books about sexual identity and sexual politics, and it kind of has to be there. And I think it is ingrained in the character in a very fundamental way. And I love this original costume. I love the flowy skirt shorts. Like I think they're fucking great. I even like I love the pants. The tight pants are fine too, although I don't like them quite as much, I will admit.
And the boots have heels, but it's interesting because I'm really not sure whether they made boots for women that didn't have heels at this time. Like the introduction of boots that you could actually wear, like for moving around in, was enough of an actual fashion innovation that there's a whole song called "These Boots Are Made for Walking." Like, it's not a coincidence. Boots as a fashion item for casual wear that were like easy to move, like that was a thing that this was 20 years after like all of these conversations. Well, and I would love a fashion historian to get in here and walk us through exactly what the context was.
Well, I mean, and there's a conversation about footwear that happens in a very early issue of Wonder Woman.
Ooh,
where
remind me of this one.
I'm not quite there yet, although I'm still trying to find the call to the Venusians.
And there's a lot of styling in this that just comes from basically what was in movies at the time, what was glamorous at the time. People dressing up in costumes that look like silent film stars. But a lot of just sort of ripped from pop culture imagery.
Oh, I want to say it was like issue 3 of Sensational, where they're dealing with the women at the oh God, what do they call the department store women? The women working in the department store for $11
the unfair
a week.
labor conditions.
The unfair labor conditions.
Where she essentially created undercover boss. Yeah.
She brainwashes the owner of the company and forces her to be an employee in her own store. And one of the things that she talks about is an employee of her own store, which she doesn't remember who she is. There's a lot of issues with that. Is that her feet hurt because standing in the heels all day is starting to like really be physically and
it's a really out there thing. Like that issue opens with a girl who has trigger warning. She has to be stopped from committing suicide because she thinks she's ruining her friend's life because she's been there's a whole thing about
that got dark.
And
very
this
dark.
comes from the heritage probably of social problem plays and social problem pictures where you sort of would be like, you know what is miserable? Being poor. Here's a whole story about how the way it ruins your life. And when you got to takes on that were very structural, whether it was like George Bernard Shaw doing Mrs. Warren's Profession, social problem plays and like that critique of society in terms of story was a whole, like, Wonder Woman did not invent that. But using that to make specific feminist critique of like labor conditions where it's like, This girl works at a store. Her friend needs medicine, can't afford the medicine. They don't make enough money. She steals some medicine for her friend, gets caught, sent to jail. When she gets out of jail, she goes to see her friend, and her friend gets fired from her job for associating with a criminal. And that girl's like, I am ruining your life. I've got to end it. And they're just like, and that's the setup for Wonder Woman basically being like, what is happening here?
Yeah, and she comes in and
she takes like some time off from the army. They're totes cool with it. They're like, oh, you need to do this thing. That's fine. Take a week off.
They
It's
have a
totally
really flexible employment policy. The one where she calls in and says she just had a really good time at that party.
They're like, wow, must have been a smashing party. All right, come in when you're ready.
I love it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, that's
who knew that?
life in the army, man.
Yeah.
Life in the army is super easy and really chill. No, but I thought that was amazing that it was like she was doing like handling labor disputes, and that's interestingly enough. She did not have her magic lasso.
Not for a long time.
She didn't have it until like issue 5.
Yeah, the lasso shows up on the 5th or 6th appearance, I think, and when they retell the origin, they go back and put it in.
I noticed that,
But I liked that the lasso first shows up as a, like, you've been doing such good work out there, we called you home to give you a present.
Yeah.
Like, because that really reinforces the, like, the level of sort of, because there's an interesting, like, whether her home environment has support for this mission, like, is proud of you but sad, or whether they're like, no, we're super, like, screw man's world, you know? It's an interesting, subtle distinction, and the idea of calling her home for that present before you have to let her go again.
It's also chain, which they talk about a lot. It's not cloth.
It's made from her mother's girdle.
It's from the girdle.
The girdle.
Which mythologically makes total sense.
Which has been unwoven.
And it's not the lasso of truth, it is a lasso of submission, where the person is compelled to obey whatever you tell them to do. So there's telling the truth is part of it, but it is like, I need you to take me on your mission. Okay.
I'll also say there's a hilariously adorable issue where a little boy who's a cowboy obsessed little boy gets a hold of the magic lasso, is not aware of it, and
then helps Wonder Woman save the day.
Yeah, well, and suddenly his little sister is like far more into playing cowboys and Indians with him until he has to give the lasso away, and then suddenly he gets the shit kicked out of him for being an asshole.
And then at the very end, she's like, Wonder Woman is like so grateful to him. She's like, you were such a big, and he's like 8, and she gives him a kiss on the cheek, and Steve Trevor goes, I wish Wonder Woman would give me a kiss like that. And it's just like, gosh, geez, he's 8. Don't be an ass.
Settle down, goat boy.
They get really into this rivalry of Steve Trevor loves Wonder Woman, but Diana Prince in her regular life is always like, I'm my own rival at the end of every episode. Like when she's done taking care of Nazis, they're like, also emotional life.
Yeah,
it's sort of
also
adorable.
that. What was that one? Oh man, I just forgot. Oh, there was the one where like Diana sees Steve leave and go on a date with another woman, and then she like follows him. Like she's like stalking Steve. Like she's at the nightclub. She's like reading a menu like at a table, watching him dance, and she's like, he's at a nightclub. I never would have pegged Steve Trevor for a guy who goes to a nightclub. And it's just like, whoa, put the brakes on. Like, whoa, what are you doing? So Miss Sunflower asks, who's Dr. Poison? Hi, Miss Sunflower.
Oh, Dr. Poison. Dr. Poison is one of the very first villains who's developing. That's kind of the spoiler. It's very much a Samus Aran.
Spoilers for the first appearance of Dr. Poison, but it is cool the way they pull it off.
It is cool. It's a full Metroid moment where they finally Dr. Poison's in this ridiculous suit for the entire thing although apparently given away by her dainty hands. As you will.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman is good at everything, including making guesses about you based on your hands.
Yeah. Including gender identity. She can do everything. Dr. Poison is creating toxins for the Germans and creating various different chemical weapons that can be used in the war. And
I think they get like a sort of like intelligence missive that is, the Nazis have developed a gas that can eat through anything. Including the masks or something like that, and I think that was even in the movie. Actually, it was this gas.
They go with that very much for the movie. I'm trying to remember, like.
But they're like, we've got to go stop this, and this is where the reverso poison comes in. Like that's the poison that Dr. Poison has actually already made.
Yeah.
Because there's
poison gas in the room with them, but that's not the thing that Dr. Poison is deploying on the training camp.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because they sort of, like, Steve Trevor's like, here, put this on, and they go ahead and release that gas in that room. But like, I guess everyone's okay. It's an interesting. I was curious, and I want to get further into Dr. Poison's appearances because they resolved that one. Spoilers for this 1942 Wonder Woman. But they resolved that one by exposing Dr. Poison as being a female scientist. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Dr. Poison in her costume where you can't quite tell anything.
You poisonous snake, I'll kill.
Oh no, I'll do the killing. My novel experiment in army morale is quite amusing, don't you think? My new drink for thirsty soldiers is so invigorating.
Yeah,
It's
Steve
just
Trevor
so-
gets captured a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that's because he's just a dude, which I love. And
of course they are saved by an all
By the
marching
Holiday
band,
Girls.
by the Holiday Girls in a giant marching band going to
Hold on, go back to what is this? Is
it's
she
just-
talking about candy? What is
Yeah,
it?
it's just
course she
candy.
is.
It's just candy.
No, I just want to know what she says. Just humor me.
What's the matter? Afraid to go on? Heck no, but I finished all the candy I brought. I can't wait till I get some more. Yeah,
Wah,
like
wah.
it's never ending.
Paul Blart. Blart, blart.
Yeah, it's a. Oh yeah, this is what I was looking for.
I just love, like, this is an entire
Here,
page of
I'm
them
gonna pull it
handling
up.
business and overwhelming the Nazis.
Yeah, here we go. This is sorority girls versus Nazis.
How did you call them? Anarchic sorority girls?
Like, the most powerful force this world has ever known.
They all like went in to be like cute and adorable, and they all had handcuffs and manacles on them. And then like the minute they hit the lights, and then like just cuffed everybody.
They show up and they're like,
hogtied
let's have a dance, and do
And the
the
men are
random
like,
secret
oh
thing. And the
yes,
Germans
let's
are
have
like,
a dance.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, it's very it's
Put your
wonderful.
guns down and dance, and then
And
it's
then
beautiful.
This is where we get the reveal of Dr. Poison as well on this page. There we are,
Yes.
because your delicate hands.
I am the
betrayed you.
prince's motto. My genius shall destroy America. I
Yeah.
don't know what the accent that is, but
No, that was good. That was good.
but what's interesting is essentially that Wonder Woman then uses a threat to expose her identity to defeat her here, where she's like, I'm willing to die, but I'm not willing to have you expose my secret to my side. And I thought that was interesting because in a subtle way, it basically says, like, using the sexism of her own side to get the victory in this situation, where, like, even the crazy murderous Nazi doctor is limited by the fact that she wouldn't be taken seriously if they knew she was actually a Princess Maru instead of their cool
Yeah.
Creepy doctor.
man scientist guy.
So Sierra the Mighty says, Steve is a less plucky Lois Lane. Changed my mind.
He's pretty plucky.
He's pretty plucky. So here's
he
one
doesn't
thing that.
face the same barriers as Lois, so in some ways he can't be as plucky.
Well,
but he's
fair.
got the same
So the-
nerve.
He's in.
That book that I'm reading actually contextualizes it really well.
Ooh.
In that, Steve, in the context of the time, Steve Trevor he serves the plot device of, yes, being a damsel in distress, but the Moulton family does it with respect. Whereas Lois Lane is not like respected at all. Like Lois Lane
They
is
both
like.
get kidnapped constantly, but
They both
Trevor
get-
looks cool doing it.
Well, Trevor looks cool doing it, and Trevor ends up helping save the day in some capacity. And when everyone gives him the credit at the end, because that's what the world of men does, they're like, no way, a woman did this. Steve Trevor, good work. No, it was Wonder Woman. I swear to you, it was Wonder Woman.
That was weirdly one of my favorite comedy things every time I revisit this is that every story ends with him attempting to give her credit and everyone being like, yeah, whatever, your
whatever.
imaginary superhero friend helped you,
Sure, whatever.
Like-
And eventually the world catches on, but for the first few issues, they haven't. But Lois Lane, when like she's just a damsel in distress, like always, like she never really helps save the day. Like not really. Like if it is, it's a fluke. It's you know. So one of the things that this guy points out.
Early on, I would go, but I feel like they changed.
I wonder if they diminished that over time. Because I know we
feel
were
like
all
they
impressed
did.
when we, like, in those early
Oh,
stories,
no,
like, she
there's-
takes a really active role.
She takes an active role, but when she's in danger, she's like, Superman, save me, save me, save me, save me. And Superman does. And Superman, by the way, total jerk to her all the time, stealing stories from her, all that other stuff.
Yeah.
That is
Whereas
true.
Steve Trevor's like, no, Wonder Woman did it. Like, and Wonder Woman's like, Steve, come on now. Like, they both love each other. They both respect each other. And that was kind of like Moulton was making a commentary even on that with Steve Trevor, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like,
Well,
I
and I
can't really
like that
speak about it the way
fact
that
that
the author does, but
if Trevor didn't do that, he wouldn't deserve her. Like,
Yeah.
So I have this. This is one of those interesting. I was also trying to find a good example of like that, the weird dominant submission compliance things coming through. This is one of these. This is one of the weirder chunks of these stories that I enjoy.
there's sort of an open question of like, how much kinkiness is in these? Which ones were intentional? Which ones should count? Which ones are we reading into it? And which ones are clearly there? And I find that to be an open question.
Oh, sure. Well, this one, I will say some of them are more open than others.
Yeah.
This one is less about that, and this one is more about his kind of the weird way that this is very much his philosophy coming through, which is they have a whole bunch of Nazi women that infiltrate Paradise Island, and what they do with them is the Queen passes judgment. I'll put this up just to sort of show this, and this becomes a weird running theme in these issues. Is this woman must not be killed? Aphrodite's law forbids. We will construct a prison on Reform Island. There she and her poor victims should be confined until their minds are completely free from evil. So, and they kind of end up how, and I remember this being really fascinating at the time, is that they discover with all of these Nazi women that they are basically still enthralled to this evil Nazi and will do anything that she says. So instead, they kind of convince them to follow the Amazons and be their slaves instead.
There's a lot of sort of brainwash running around in these stories.
Yeah, and it's
Although
a lot of.
There's very early on, she's like, then I use Amazonian psychological techniques to free her from the mind control. And it's interesting where it's like, what techniques?
Yeah.
Like, how?
Well, and there's definitely, and there's things I won't get, but like this is possibly, I mean, just for you, this is my favorite page of just like it's just there. It's just fucking there.
Another girl misunderstands the use of a tennis racket.
Oh yeah, and she then.
Oh girl, what a spanker! No, that's a tennis bat. Pooh, it doesn't hurt. It's a sissy spanker from the man's world. The goddess must be Wonder Woman.
Yeah, this is when they're trying to figure out the identity of Wonder Woman. It's very. Someone spent a lot of time in a sorority, is all I'm going to say.
And this was a whole thing. This was a side of like playfulness, or
yes, absolutely. You are not wrong. I will
Submissive playful.
I will speak to this because everybody already knows I'm weird on the internet. Yeah, no, it's absolutely. It's very playful and it's very childish. And very, I can see why they're putting it in the book, and I can see what the point of it is to demystify some aspects of especially at this time. One of the big conversations that was happening in psychology is, are we just all really fucking repressed, and is that a big reason why we're all terrible to each other? Is because everybody is like deeply repressed, and one of the things that they were looking at the time was. At the time that these books were being written, no one really understood human sexuality on any level. It was basically we are fundamentally trying to understand.
Remember, we literally haven't even made it to the 1950s, much less out of them.
Yeah, no, and no study had been made yet on how anything worked. No one knew anything. Like
tragically, a lot of the studying that was happening in like pre-war Berlin, and then got destroyed
completely
in a super devastating way because history sucks.
Because history sucks, and we didn't have the Kinseys or the Masters and Johnson studies yet. No one had any idea how human sexuality worked, other than the fact that it was obviously messing us up really badly, and. This was definitely, I think, an attempt to start demystifying layers of that in the most innocent way humanly possible. That's the vibe I definitely get. Was definitely a men and women are different and have feeling, and there's a little bit of sexuality that is going to come out in this, but it's fine, everything's fine. But like from a very obviously from what I would assume is a place of deep ignorance about how the world really works, because we were in a place of deep ignorance about how the world really works at this point, and I can only imagine being on the outskirts of that, of knowing that knowing that already your personal relationships are on a deep, vast island from whatever normality was, but having no sense of what normality actually looked like. I can't even imagine what that was like.
And it is interesting because and famously, these stories are absolutely full of people getting tied up and all of that. And I think a lot of that is just because it's adventure storytelling tropes and you need to get captured all the time so you can get out of trouble.
Sure.
But probably not coincidentally, like there's all of this imagery of binding and chaining and all of this stuff, and there's sort of endless discussion of whether that was like what that was intended to do, or how much it was intended, or how much effect it had on the psychology of people reading. But what I do find interesting is that the imagery is all over, like they're always getting captured, but it is kept very separate from the primary romantic relationship of the book. Like this is never really played between her and Steve.
I'm of the opinion reading it that that's a very conscious choice. It is more trying to develop the world and less about developing these two characters. And I think it does an excellent. And again, at some point when we get into the Grant Morrison run, where this is a little more overt, I think it's a really interesting conversation that was probably happening in this book amongst between the writers and the author, and the writers and the audience, about what was okay and what was acceptable and what we should just be all right with. And I quite like it, I will say. It never feels salacious to me. Like, I'll go back and read those EC comics, and that's some. I finished Lock and Key, by the way.
Oh!
All of it.
I've got to catch up. So,
including the specials, and like they did an EC Comics issue in those special, that one volume that she hadn't read, that was very salacious.
Ooh.
Like ripped bodice. Oh no, I can see everything, and a lot of that. In the EC style. This isn't that. Like, this is not salacious.
That is weird. Like, pretty much from and I only got partway through my intended reread. But there's basically no element of people being like, and now I will look up your skirt or dress you in a weird costume. Like, there's a moment. Like, the villains are generally not coming at her in a sexual way.
The only one that I got a creepy vibe from was Hercules. Hercules was the only moment where I'm like, oh, you're bad.
And that has been sort of retold in different ways in later generations. But interestingly, when they go into the detailed version of that story, it's more about just abusing trust and less about like some of the stuff that they add in later in terms of Hercules mistreating Hippolyta. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah. There are, in the reading that I did, there were 2 mentions of making love, which I was like, gee, for the 40s, like for a kid's book, like.
Okay, but I think that meant pitching woo. Like,
I think so, but the fact that they were like Steve, like on.
I think the terminology was different though.
Maybe so, but even then, I was just like, oh wow, like that is, wow.
I think that might have been a modern reading from you. I think that I don't know if that phrase was in common use at the time.
So like they just meant like they were just kissing.
Making love, in some older texts, really just means hitting on.
Romancing.
All right,
But
still, I was
unclear
like,
in some texts, and I don't know exactly when the meanings change.
Yeah, it's a tough call because there's some weird language in this book that I don't entirely understand, that I do run into. That's
but
common.
You get like there's references to making love in Jane Austen where it's clearly just somebody like admiring and professing like
wooing.
Wooing.
Making woo. I like making woo. That's quite nice.
Pitching woo, like
pitching woo.
But there's also like it's not, it's only 30 years later where we're in Cabaret and they're talking like making love, and it's just like, okay, by this time it clearly means sex, but I don't know exactly when that happened.
Yeah, but when
Audience, do you know that?
Yeah. What's the etymology of that particular phrase?
When did making love?
It is.
Making love.
Yeah, but Hercules is the only villain that shows up in this book that really, I mean, like, even the mobsters that are attempting to like literally chain her and I swear to God drown her in milk.
Oh yeah.
Literally a thing.
Where like they were trying. That's right. It was the Baroness who was like like she had that milk racket because she was like, ha, if I take milk away from America's youth will grow up to be very weak and stupid.
Even Wonder Woman's like, this is your plan? And she's like, entire generation of bad bones. Like,
yeah, you'll be weak. You'll be easier to defeat in 20 or 30 years. Take that, America.
And
really thinking long.
Wow. So they do.
Wonder Woman, let her do that.
They do chain Diana into a tank and slowly fill it with milk. That is the thing that happens.
And then they throw her briefcase to her. Just
when I say that nobody goes after her sexually, I mean nobody tries to like rip things off or actually attack her. They do chain her up repeatedly.
Even that, which is very obviously layered in issues, is treated very innocently. Like, yeah, it's not any more salacious than like maybe a tad burlesque at best.
Yeah.
Would be my most vicious reading of it. Hercules is the only moment where I'm like, oh, he was creepy.
Yeah. Hercules was soups creepy.
I will also say that might have also been that Morrison's version of Hercules was also soups creepy.
Well, and that the Perez run is sort of explicit about the crimes of Hercules in a way that, like, much as I love that run, it makes it hard to go back and revisit this sort of like, because there's at least one telling of this where it literally is just they beat each other in a fight, and then his big crime is to be like, well, just hang out with me and get drunk. Can I hold it for a second? And she's like, here, have the girdle. And it's like, that was it. We capture everybody and like beat them up, but like it's sort of somehow the most innocent version of that betrayal that you can have, and it's like, so in this it's possible to read it in a less creepy way. It's just that so many times in ensuing decades they go a different way.
Well, and you know, I mean, like, and it also it helps paint for later. Like, I'm a big fan of the Wonder Woman from what is that Tim Cook book, the New Frontier.
Darwin Cook.
Yeah, Darwin Cook. Oh Lord, Darwin Cook's New Frontier, and I love that Vietnam era Wonder Woman who like goes into Vietnam, like finds the indentured brothel, frees them, hands all the women weapons, and like lets them murder a village, like, and it's just sitting there, just drinking it, just having a drink, waiting
This
for
Wonder
Superman
Woman would
going.
probably be a little bit more like Aphrodite's Law forbids that.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, that is a very interesting read of that character that could come from like, oh no, I didn't help them, but I certainly let them loose.
Yeah.
But it is really interesting.
They could have walked away.
They pull no punches in terms of the narration, where they're like, because like that'll teach you to trust men in man's world.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it's just like, it's pretty out there for the 40s.
Yes.
You know.
Pretty out there for now, even.
Yeah.
I love it.
I also love it.
I had a really good time rereading this. I hadn't read this since oh God, 2007, 2008. My roommate at the time was a huge Wonder Woman fan. She had the giant omnibus collections.
I think I got these in like 2010, so it has been a while to revisit.
God forbid if Shauna Huerta is out there. Thank you, Shauna, for letting me read all this comic book.
If you are curious about this stuff, by the way, you can get these editions. I think are getting tough to find. They change the editions every few years. Nowadays, there's one called Wonder Woman: The Golden Age. That if one of y'all has the cover to that,
I do
we got it.
Because that's what I bought myself. On the ticker tape machine.
This exists in both hardcover and softcover now, and is a chronological reprinting of these stories.
I got this super cheap. It was like $12. It was so unbelievably cheap. And look at this beautiful cover.
Yeah. It's so good.
I know. I hate that. I sometimes feel bad that this show is literally me just like murdering your wallet with feelings.
Yeah.
You can get these omnibus collections, and they're really, I mean, like, it's just great. Look at that beautiful. It's so good. Yeah, and this collection is, what do you get with this collection, just so you know what you're getting into? All-Star Comics number 8, Sensational Comics all the way through 9, Wonder Woman number 1, Sensational Comics all the way through number 10, Wonder Woman number 1, and then, oh God, no, Sensational all the way through 14. Comic Cavalcade number 1, all through Wonder Woman number 3, which has like 5 stories in it. It's 377 pages. It's
a lot of great classic Wonder Woman.
So we have about 10 minutes left.
So we should do our
topic.
Yeah.
I should also point out, someone in chat noticed earlier our jackets.
Oh yeah.
You guys are wearing the jackets.
We're wearing our Wonder Woman jackets. They are indeed from Hero Within, as you pointed out. And my lovely wife Brittany in the chat, take a drink,
Brittany.
Make sure it's water, stay hydrated, kids. Noted that man, Amy, we're in matching jackets. Oh, we are.
We're not.
I haven't gotten a Hero Within jacket yet. I got to do that soon.
Yeah.
You got to get that
happen.
soon.
I know.
All right, are you guys ready?
Oh no.
For a fantastic topic.
I mean, like, I could talk about Wonder Woman more, or we could do.
This comes from Alpha. Queen Mab.
Mm-hmm. A good
Hi,
name.
Queen Mab.
Always.
Topic. Etta Candy becomes a superhero. What are her origins, powers, and her arch nemesis? Bonus from Nerdstrom's. What was the candy that gave her those powers? So, do you want to introduce The 5-minute topic.
Bless this. This is our 5-minute topic on the Wednesday Club. My name is Amy Dallen. That's Matt Key. That's Taliesin Jaffe. And we have 5 minutes to decide if Etta Candy, classic Wonder Woman side character and general badass, became a superhero in her own right. What would her nemesis be?
Her powers and her origins. What was the Candy that gave her those powers from Nerdstrom? Of course, that is assuming that Candy gave her powers.
Well, I mean,
now that it's been suggested, I love it.
no, I mean, like, my immediate thought is she gets different powers depending on which candy she's eating.
Okay, love it.
Like nerds make
So
her
take
super
it. No,
smart.
go for it.
Like anytime she eats nerds, that she gets super
Or
super
Smarties.
Smart. Or Smarties will also make her very
Perfect,
very smart.
perfect.
Oh my
Milky
God!
Way's a teleporter?
So like
Junior Mints make her actually look like a child.
Milky Way like gives her cosmic powers.
Cosmic powers.
Ooh, I like
That's
that.
very nice.
Yeah, like but what would a Snickers?
Snickers would make her extremely witty.
The power of wit.
Oh, really?
What would a whatchamacallit give her?
Well, you could go the Doom
Language
Patrol.
powers.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
She can interpret anything.
Yeah.
Okay, I like it. I like. What about M&Ms?
M&Ms.
Like Jubilee's power, maybe she can just like shoot out like fireworks because they're like really tiny.
Oh wait,
They
wait.
don't melt, so maybe it gives her like an invulnerability thing.
Ooh, they melt in your mouth, not in your hand.
Yeah. So a certain amount of invulnerability, and then you get added. You get strength with invulnerability if you have it with peanuts, because then you are also because peanuts.
All the
peanuts
different
are,
versions of her own nose.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want her powers to potentially be related to the fact that like she's just it's not officially a superpower, but Captain America style, she just has like a leadership thing.
Yeah.
And that's because I loved revisiting in these stories the way Etta Candy is just like the unquestioned leader of all of these identical sorority girls that follow her everywhere and fight Nazis every time
I have
she gets
to admit,
into trouble.
I love that it's like Wonder Woman called, gals, and it looks like we've got to go into another mission where we all might die. Let's go!
Yeah. And
It's a
like
jalopy.
she just inspires people.
Grab the jalopy. Let's sing a song.
Yeah. Let's go fight some Nazis underwater in our little swim caps, which they
Sure.
do. And the Nazis are like, oh no, mermaids. Yeah. So
Oh
just
man, so
inspiring
many
leadership
powers. I'm
qualities.
sorry, I gotta stop.
No.
I don't. Her origin would be something like with Wonder Woman vanishing and her having to step up and accidentally touching an ancient artifact. Like
Oh, that's good. Like she goes.
Hestia, a goddess of the hearth, being like, you run the sorority house, and as goddess of the hearth, I will bless you and give you the power to defend your homeland.
So I was going Bacchus. This is way better. Yeah.
Oh, Bacchus actually is a little better for the sort of riotous energy that she
Yeah,
has.
but like, but actually, that's the thing is Wonder Woman is 4 gods, so maybe she gets 4 gods. Also.
Yeah.
So,
Like,
so
is Hestia the
Bacchus,
same as Ceres? Is it that Roman?
Yeah, I think it is.
Ooh, can't remember.
Hestia,
Maybe?
Eris. I think you would have to throw Eris in there because
Discord.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's its crazy wacky power,
Okay.
Yeah.
and it's okay to have a little dark. Now we need what's one more like really. Oh God, who's left who'd be interesting and who would want to get in on this?
I mean, just Hera because she's a queen.
Hera really like Hera
gets
got
bad
left
rap.
out. She gets
Yeah.
a bad rap. I feel that.
Okay, so we got origins, powers, arch nemesis.
I mean, I'm trying to remember the name of the villain from Willy Wonka.
Well, what's interesting about Etta is that, like, unfortunately, they make a ton of jokes at the expense of her appearance, but she has almost no insecurity about it that is visible.
She's
in
actually
these
really
stories.
proud of it.
No, she's
just like,
got
whatever,
whatever,
I am who
man.
I am.
Whatever. I am who I am. I like candy.
So I like to think
living
that
my
her
best
arch
life.
nemesis would be one of these psychological style villains who makes other people feel bad, and Etta Candy liberates you from that by giving the smackdown to this, like,
Interesting. So
you
like,
know.
so her arch nemesis is like the super bully.
yeah, yeah.
Like a super bully who is like, give me your lunch money. You're stupid and ugly and fat. And she's like, hey, no, they're not. You're beautiful and lovely and wonderful.
High five, punch.
My immediate thought is like some sort of version of pestilence is like just somebody who just makes you want to deny everything that makes you happy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love the 4 horsemen. I've been very good omens lately, so
Oh, nice.
yeah. I love the idea of just a pestilence as a creature. It's like you're not actually going to eat that. I mean, really, haven't you had enough? It's just starve you slowly. Like
Sounds like more like famine.
I know. Well, yeah, famine past. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, famine's better. Thank you.
I mean,
Bring
or
it.
her arch nemesis.
Oh.
Okay, her arch nemesis
it.
might be Despair from Sandman.
Oh.
Because, and that she would be the only one who could get through because she just doesn't have
She's just
that.
radiant
She's
joy.
Just like, I brought you
She's
a
just
lunch.
bouncy, radiant
And
joy.
Despair would be like,
I brought you
"Oh,
Skittles."
I feel slightly better.
Do Skittles
like-
give her the power of the rainbow?
They do. They give everyone the power of the
She's
rainbow.
kind of like like
3,
Dazzler in that way.
Dazzler
2, One.
Yay!
And we've
Great question.
we've built a powerhouse of
Positivity.
of positive, tasty goodness.
Thank you to
Etta
Queen
Candy.
Mab and to Nerdstrom's for those excellent questions. We all emerged from our reading of Golden Age Wonder Woman with a fierce desire to love and protect Etta Candy from the fairly unkind narrative that surrounds her, even though she's constantly saving the day.
She's so badass.
If you like this, you can watch more of the Wednesday Club every single Wednesday night on Geek and Sundry's Twitch channel, also on ProjectAlpha.com. You can watch all of our old episodes over there. Matt Key, Taliesin Jaffe, Amy Dallen, and yeah, thank you for watching our 5-minute topic.
Yeah.
All right, we've got 5 minutes left.
Oh man, there's so much more. Why did I even pull all of these bookmarks for?
Enemy M&Ms from TV. That's a producer Liz.
Producer Liz, yes, says the CGI.
Just remember, M&Ms are the opposite of M&M is the opposite of Wonder Woman. Because if you turn Wonder Woman upside down, M&M.
Winter Full says her nemesis is Dr. Diabetes.
Oh,
Sunflower says her arch nemesis is apathy.
fair.
Alexander
that.
says her arch nemesis is internet trolls.
I like that too.
KB Tibbs, Turkish Delight will just make her really disappointing to everyone.
I'm gonna put out here
Delight.
that
I said that just for you.
Turkish
You love
Delight.
your
I love my Turkish
Delight.
Delight, and Marisha Ray loves her. Like Marisha Ray and I have like a serious problem with Turkish.
Whatever,
I actually
Edmund
wonder if
from
Marisha
Narnia.
Ray is just doing that to be nice to you.
No, this is a whole thing.
I don't disagree.
We've
I
had a long conversation
I've wondered
with her.
about it before. Like, I wonder if Marisha's just being nice to you.
No, she's not. When has she ever just been nice to anybody?
No, fair.
Thank you.
That is fair.
That would have been a first.
Ms.
She
Sunflower
suffered.
says, a powerhouse of candy. Test subject 35, her nemesis is Wilfred Brimley.
Oh, God.
Okay. I just one more heroic Etta Candy shot from
Bring
this.
it. Bring it.
When the Steve Trevor and his buddy don't notice is that Wonder Woman sees the sailing party of girls from Holiday College, headed by their chubby leader Etta Candy, but like looking so cool, just going yo ho lassies, adventure ahead, or I don't know, flash signals from Wonder Woman's bracelets when I see them, and they're just
on the
they're
boat.
just all on the boat, and she's just like, here's what we're doing. Like, look at the way she's standing.
She's the leader.
in charge. It's
She's
amazing.
in charge.
Don't fuck around with Etta Candy, man.
Yeah. So I found the panel. Remember earlier in the episode we talked about the fat Amazon named Fat Sis.
Yeah.
Oh.
So she's wrestling with Diana's best friend Mala, and Mala's like, so Fat Sis is on her. She says, "Woo, hot work. I better rest a while." And then Mala says, "Whew. If I don't get this 2-ton grease heap off me quickly, I'll
Lord.
suffocate."
Maybe we don't dwell
We don't-
on
we don't
this is
dwell
not
on
the
that.
finest hour.
Why, dude? Oh.
It's so wrong.
Oh.
It's not right at all. What is going on?
It was, yeah.
It was another time.
They think they thought that was fun and lighthearted, and like it
Yeah.
was a bad idea.
Yeah, as many things in here are bad ideas, but there's many good ones.
2 minutes left.
But in between all of that,
Between all of that, yeah. While
Wonder
I put
Woman
one
is
up.
here to help him wage battle for freedom, democracy, and womankind throughout the world, as we would now say, of all shapes and sizes as well. But what I love about that is that, like, that central spirit is so clearly more important than, like, their poorly chosen treatment of people from other countries or people of various body sizes. That, like, it is not... For me, it is easy to take this essence forward in time because it's so clear what they're going for, and every age gets to interpret what's important about that to them. But, like, she is such a strong idea from the start that she survives all of these different iterations. As we've discussed here, like, she and Batman and Superman have been in continuous publication since, like, the only 3 characters in more or less continuous publication since their time of creation before World War II. And it's fascinating. Like, it worked beyond, I think, the wildest dreams of the people who came up with this character.
Oh, without a doubt.
E.R. Nesbitt says, thank you, Wednesday Club. Etta Candy is their new favorite hero.
Yeah,
Yes!
as it should be.
And like the whole chat is just like,
I did find the JSA
Etta
mention
Candy.
finally. Which
Oh, great.
It was one where they all fell asleep.
Uh-huh.
And it was to explain the strange sleeping condition. Let us go back to the preceding evening in Diana's room. When I visited Venus for the Justice Society, Queen Desira magnetized these earrings with her lips. She said the earrings would give me magnetic hearing and she could speak to me from Venus. I have a feeling she's trying to contact me now. Oh, my ears are tingling. So, and then the little fairy creatures show up and they go on an adventure in their sleep.
The magical kiss of the Queen of Venus. There may be some hints throughout these books.
If I travel to Eros tonight in my sleep, I must be dressed in my Wonder Woman costume. Oh yeah, that is the whole thing.
And then one book or a couple books later, they go to Mars, which is run by men, and everyone hates it. The metaphors are palpable.
Thank you so much for watching Wednesday Club. This has been so much fun engaging with the earliest appearances of Wonder Woman.
Where are we going from here? Like after the show, what's happening?
Oh, I was like, I don't know what we're doing next.
Oh, yeah.
But in a few minutes, we're going to play some Weave, and we're going to go back to Sorte. And I'm going to be leading our merry band of whatever's going to happen tonight. And yeah, we'll see you then.
So, see you next week.
Good night,
Wednesdays. Love you.